Hello, and welcome to my channel. My name is Michael, and I'm exploring all the different ways that stationery can bring me joy. I'm really excited to have you join me today as I ruminate a little bit more on what my everyday journal means to me and how it kind of serves not only a function for capturing memory, but also for enriching my everyday life. Last week, I did a bit of a reflection on how current events have gotten to kind of a place where they're bubbling over in my mind. The news, doom scrolling, seeing everything that's happening on kind of the national stage started to seep its way into my daily pages in my everyday journal. And while I don't necessarily think that that's a bad thing, it was separating or kind of wedging into what the original purpose of my everyday journal was, which was to be a place to kind of, I don't know if escape is the right word, but to ruminate, I guess better, on the other aspects of my life and my day and my thoughts and my feelings as a way to kind of have one space where I could escape thinking about the daily news and things that were happening. That was actually one of the impetuses or catalysts for me wanting to start a daily journaling practice. And so I can link to that video here, but it led me to start this kind of journal of witness where I am documenting the news every day, starting my journaling practice with reflecting on what's top of mind in the news and taking a few minutes to kind of write that down to make sure that I still have a place to process that, but then allows me to jump into my other journal to do more of the creative work and the kind of focus on other aspects of my life that I want to focus on. I thought today would be a great day to highlight what it is that I like to ruminate on in this journal in case you're new to the channel or newer, or even if you've been following for a while. It is a little different and looks a little different than my everyday journal last year. It is the end of January, and so I thought it would be really fun to kind of do that reflection while also incorporating a January flip through. So as opposed to doing a separate flip through video where I'm just quickly flipping through the pages, this will be a little bit more of a chatty reflection, a little bit of a journal with me, and kind of a, I don't know what the proper word is, but place to kind of document some maybe deeper philosophical feelings I have about journaling currently. So without further ado, I hope that you are comfortable, and if you have a beverage with you or a snack, your own journal, something cozy to do while you join me, and we can kind of spend a little bit of time together from my desk to yours through time and space. So I have to say, just to start off, still loving this cover. I know I made a last minute switch to this Foggy Plaid, and every time I look at it, I'm just so in love with the way that it looks. Maybe it's because New York has experienced the coldest weather it's had in quite some time, and this winter has been a little bit brutal, which we will also get into later because my two journal pages that I need to do today and yesterday have some fun winter-related activities. Well, fun in the ironic sense. But maybe it is all this extra cold that is making me really feel warm and comforted by this plaid cover. And so turning into my journal, I'm going to flip to the monthly pages and kind of update you on how my plan for my monthly pages has been going so far in the month of January. I set up all of my monthly pages around a theme this year, and January's was the theme of memory, as a place to collect ephemera, doodles, quotes, stickers, gratitude for each day surrounding, as best I can, the theme. And so I have completed my 30 days. I'm about to add my 31. And I think it's been really fun kind of getting all of the different entries put in place. And so I kind of walked a little bit through some of these already, but just looking a little later in the month, my husband and I watched the first episode of the new season of Drag Race. Always a fun memory. The sofa that we bought, which was a Burrow sofa in the pandemic, finally we said goodbye to it and put her out on the curb because we got a new sofa. So I wanted to definitely commemorate that memory. I received a Coffee Monster Co. order in January, and that was the time last year when I got my first order of from the Coffee Monsters Co. So not the exact date, but basically a 1 year kind of anniversary of being hooked into this stationery world. Did some gratitude for all of the lovely books that I received over Christmas break and that I have that, bring me a lot of joy, and having all of these things to read recently. I did some filming for my channel, and then I had this sticker and it just was so perfect. Swatched my favorite ink from the Diamond Ink Bank calendar. It was the readathon at my school, and I kept one of the stickers that we give to the students. Went to a coffee shop that is kind of like Joker themed, so I put this photo. Went on a little trip, and I trimmed out the kind of Instax photo to fit in here. The 6th graders at my school did their end of Greek mythology project where they take a Greek god and they create an Uno card for them. Like, they give that Uno card a power related to the Greek god. So after researching the Greek god, they figure out what the Uno power for that card should be. Then they design it and illustrate it, and then we print them on like labels and stick them to these giant Uno cards, and then they play this big Uno tournament using the cards, and it's always so much fun. I love going. Had a lot of happy mail in these 2 days, sending and receiving. Just spent a lot of time in my journals. We had a snow day on the 26th, so definitely had to mark that as a lovely memory. And just kind of collecting different ephemera and things to kind of remember. I put here a quote from the film Arrival, one of my favorite movies. Memory is a strange thing. It doesn't work like I thought it did. We are so bound by time, by its order. And this past Friday went out to karaoke with my coworkers, so I put in here good music and good friends. And I have the item to put in for today, which I think is going to be something coffee or breakfast related, because I went to brunch with my friend and it was really lovely. That one is a contender, this little plate with the coffee cup. Let's see. That's a great one. Yeah, I think I'm gonna go with that plate. Even though we had brunch, so what we had was pancakes and not necessarily a pastry. It might as well have been a pastry because it was so delicious. It was a sticky toffee pancake, and it was very, very good. I'm almost wondering if I should include the photo that I took of it in my spread today. And this is just a memory that I want to cherish that's linked to many memories. My friend Nikki and I go on many lovely treat adventures. She is the kind of person who, and when is looking at Instagram, they look for the ads from different restaurants or cafes or places that look really delicious, and they save them. She sends them to me, and then, we go out and explore the city in that way, I guess, gastronomically, if you will. So that is definitely a moment that I think was really important, but is a great memory that, resonates. There are many moments like that with her. So I want to add that in there. And that is my month of collecting different items for the theme of memory. And I'm just so excited by this layout. Last year in my A6, I thought I was going to put a photo a day. And for the first 2 months, I actually did. But then it was really, as the book got thicker, the photos that were here in the center were starting to get really warped and kind of peel off. And I think, hopefully, fingers crossed, as I don't chunk this book up as much, that won't be an issue, especially if a lot of the things I'm putting here are very thin stickers or paper, or just writing itself. And so maybe that's actually a good thing for me to think about, is moving forward, trying to keep these days sticker or thicker paper free as much as I possibly can. But this is like one of the things that I think is what I was trying to get at in thinking about how I want to keep some compartmentalization of things that are happening currently in the world, and my thoughts and feelings about my personal life, in that when I'm working on this book and doing these things, I think this is the first kind of real activity that is kind of mindfulness related in some way, that has actually like resonated with me. As someone who's worked in education now for almost 20 years, when I was a teacher, a few years in, this idea of mindfulness started becoming really important. And I have sat through many a PD where we talk about mindfulness, or we talk about, taking a moment to express gratitude and things of that nature. And for a long time, I thought that it seemed a little, I don't know if hokey is the right word, but I didn't necessarily buy into it, especially because earlier on in my career, I was just, so stressed with trying to figure out how to just be a good teacher. Having those kinds of conversations just felt kind of important, but then at the same time, I had so many other things on my mind. Maybe if I had actually listened to a little bit of it. But I think also the way that these kinds of practices get filtered down from their original intent down into, these professional development sessions that are given to different groups, sometimes very large groups, so it doesn't feel as kind of intimate or personal, can be a little bit problematic because it gets kind of concentrated to this like core key points and some fun activities, or, some discussions, and then you're supposed to kind of, well, now you understand this. And I think something as complicated as mindfulness or being in the moment has so much nuance to it, especially considering the background of everyone in the room and the different things that they've experienced. It can come off a little bit like, set a timer, sit in your mind, taste this raisin you put in your mouth, mindfulness, right? But this activity that I've done this month in my cousin, by sitting down each day, I do almost understand now a little more clearly this idea of being mindful, because every day I sit down, I turn to this page, I think about what happened in my day today related to memory, and next month it will be related to love, that really I want to sit and kind of document, to have forever in this book to look back at. And it lets me kind of sift through some of the interactions I've had that day, replay them in my mind, understand why they're important to me, or maybe not so important, and I can let them kind of drift away, maybe some of those more negative ones. And then I get to like sit through all of my materials and, ephemera and stickers and kind of choose the best one for this moment. And when I'm doing that, it's such a lovely process of thinking about my day, but also like letting all of the stressors and all of the things kind of melt away. And I feel the same way in all parts of this journal. It's almost like a Zen-like practice. And I'm obviously going to talk a little bit more about this, but I think I started feeling this idea when the seed of this kind of feeling first kind of got planted inside of me as I was doing this moment a day in my monthly section. So now that this month is done, I can turn to my weekly, and I have been using the weekly as a space to answer a prompt every day. And my prompts are written here on the side. You can kind of see from the beginning of the month. I at first thought I was going to be putting stickers that kind of related to my answer, but I kind of moved away from that just to kind of leave it as mostly a space to write my prompts out on the sidebar. And I have done this every day. And what I love about this is I do really think it kind of gets the creative juices flowing to allow myself to start really writing, so that when I get to my daily pages, I'm already kind of in the zone of like, ideas are flowing out, words are flowing out. And it's been really fun coming up with these prompts. I, as a teacher, an English teacher specifically, have collected a myriad of books that are like, 500 things to write about, 1,000 questions about yourself, like icebreakers for any meeting, those kinds of things. And it's been really great to have a purpose for them again. Now that I'm, as an administrator, I don't necessarily need that many prompts because I don't have students that I see every day or have some kind of practice in that way. I do go to a lot of meetings, and at my school we do start each meeting with some kind of like icebreaker or check-in question, and so those books are helpful for those. But I'm glad that I could kind of take that to create these prompts and have them, printed, ready for myself to refer to, but also in my Patreon for anyone to download. So if you like the idea of having these prompts pre-printed, the link is in my description where you can go and find those for free to use in your journal as well. And so I thought we could sit together as I get my prompt answered for today, which is, what is something you are taking into February? What are you leaving behind in January? And so I'm just going to very quickly kind of pop in here with my Esterbrook Estie. I believe this is a very fine nib, and extra fine. Is it extra fine? Yes. And I have this inked with the Robert Oster Coffee Monster Co. Collab Ink Coffee Monster. And I'm going to fill this out here with you. So I'm sure that I will pop some music on here, and voiceover Michael will keep you company for the couple of, what for you will be moments, and me maybe a couple of minutes as I fill this out. I think these prompts are not only helpful in that they get me to just start writing, so my pen's already moving across the paper, the ink is flowing, and therefore when I jump to my daily page, I'm just kind of already in the zone of putting down words to the paper. I think it adds to the sense of mindfulness also because I have a very narrow, focused question to kind of laser my thoughts towards, and that helps start to kind of begin the cascading process of blocking out other thoughts or other worries or other concerns that I might have. Just like in the monthly section, I'm ruminating on one memory, one thing that I want to focus on. The prompt also starts to allow me to push other things out of my mind because I'm only thinking about this aspect of myself or about my personality or my outlook on the world that the prompt forces me to have. And that's also kind of setting the foundation for this mindful or Zen-like practice. Thank you, VoiceOver Michael, for your thoughts. Something else that I want to highlight about answering these weekly prompts in this way is that I have also allowed myself to appreciate the fountain pens and the inks that I have in a much more consistent way than in my old journaling practice last year. Last year, I, would have a few pens inked with different colors, and I would use them in my journals, but some ended up being mostly kind of like a splash of color, and then there were some inks that I just used consistently for the body. But what I have enjoyed about this is that every week I am using a different pen with a different ink. And this is allowing me to really explore the different inks and pens that I have. And so even though I may not write my journal entries with this Estie, I have spent a week writing with her and kind of getting to enjoy the way that she feels, and I get to cycle through all of my pens this way. I don't know why I decided that this fountain pen is, one that has female pronouns, but we're going to go with it. And, well, now I feel like she needs a name. Okay, we'll come back to that. So, that is how the weekly spread is going in my Hobonichi Cousin. I am just so elated to be able to come in here every week and get my writing started and be a little bit more reflective. And then after the weekly section, we pop into the daily, and I am just kind of skipping over what I previously already shared in my video where I kind of just gushed about how much fun I was having in this notebook. And I will quickly kind of flip through some of the entries that I have here. On the 11th of January, I got a new sofa, finally. It has been quite some time. And for a few years, my husband and I were like, okay, the sofa needs to be replaced, but we kind of dragged our feet until finally we did it this year. On this day, I swatched some new washi tapes that I've gotten samples or rolls of here in the margin, and kind of talked about that a little bit. And then, some sad things here, but I drew an image of all of the books I received for Christmas that are now my little TBR stack that's next to our new sofa so that I can pick them easily as I go through and read them. On this day, there was a Verizon wireless outage in a lot of New York and New Jersey, and I could not get a hold of my husband, and it was a little stressful because we had an appointment and I was calling, he wasn't answering, and it made me a little nervous for a bit until I realized what was going on. This was the day that I also had some fun, kind of battling out the inks from the Diamine ink vent from this past Christmas, and I kind of bracketed them off until I got to my top 3, and this was my top 3 colors. I really love this spread. This is wrapping paper from one of my Christmas gifts that I thought was so beautiful that I tore off a big chunk to keep as ephemera. This was a sticker from one of my sticker books, and then I'm very excited to have picked up my own Penco kind of label maker, where you punch the letters into kind of the label strip, and I typed out the word cursed here, and talked about my visit to the eye doctor, and I just have this like kind of thing going on with my eye, and it's just because I'm getting older, it's a thing that I'm now dealing with, and kind of a reflection a little bit on getting older and what that means. Swatched some of the new Tombow colors I have gotten since August of last year, and talked about the readathon at my school, which is one of my favorite days in the school year. Did a little map through the icons to represent things that happened on this Saturday. Zoom call, going to brunch, heading to the post office, going to stationery store. A little bit of a reflection on picking up my Han at said stationery store to start my Journal of Witness, and I kind of reflected a little bit on that here. On this Monday, we had off, and my husband and I went upstate to Beacon, where we visited also a record store in Beacon, and kind of talked about that. I made this kind of Beacon image here. This is what's on the city flag of Beacon, is like this tower, and I made this out of craft paper. This was the movie club date for my movie club. We had to bring to this session 5 movies that we've seen already that we would want to have in our collection, and then 5 movies we have not seen that we would like to see. And I have this pad of movie trackers, and I decided to use it for this, even though it gives me 8, not 5. So I kind of did some honorable mentions, some cheating. Speaking of records, on this Wednesday, I kept listening to, I want to say Court and Spark, but that is not the album that I was listening to. But I was listening to an album by Joni Mitchell, and this song, Rainy Night House, came up. I will put the correct album up here because it's going to drive me crazy. And then this song, I listened to it a few times. I actually moved the needle back, and I decided to write down the lyrics because that was at top of mind as I was doing this. This day I got to book some flights, and so I'm excited because I will be visiting San Francisco and Chicago. There was rumor going into this weekend that we might have a snow day on Monday, and so I kind of just talked about, even if there wasn't a snow day, if we just had a very snowstormy weekend, all of the writing in my journals and reading that I wanted to do in the house, especially now that we had our new sofa that was super cozy. And that is just what I did. And so on this day, I drew my kind of Kindle outline and reflected on the utter chokehold that the Heated Rivalry series has on me, so much so that it has made me go and read a lot of the books in the series. I know, I have a giant table full of physical books to read, but I couldn't help myself. And so I did a little bit of reflecting on this because, yeah, I'm a little obsessed, and it was nice to kind of write down my feelings about it. This Sunday was when the snow really, really hit, and it was just a lot of snow, so much so that some came inside of the office of our apartment. We had the AC still in the window, and I know we probably should have taken it out, especially knowing there was a snowstorm coming, But we've had it in other times that it's snowed, and it hasn't been a problem. But because the snowstorm was so strong and the wind was kind of pushing the snow almost horizontally at the back of our building, the snow kind of came in through the air conditioner, which was a lot of fun to have to deal with. But after that, I, watched some YouTube, and I was on Micah Oatley's channel. She is the artist behind the Cat Collage Club, and she had a video that day of how to basically watercolor with fountain pen inks, and I decided to try it out. So this was before I knew what I was going to write about that day. I made these flowers kind of in the corners, pretty much very much straight up copying the style of two of these from her, and then attempting to do what she did with the inks. And I think it came out pretty good for my first attempt. Not perfect. There's definitely some feathering where I did not wait for the water to dry as much as I should have. And the Tomoe River paper, while I have to say, has been doing really well. Like the fact that I colored all of this in with marker and then swatched these inks on this one, and no bleeding. Barely any ghosting. Fantastic. Unfortunately, with the amount of water that I was using and then ink, it didn't go so great, and so I had to put some craft paper down because I definitely bled through a little bit. But I have to say that I had to really abuse the paper for that to happen, so still really happy with the 2026 version of this Sands and Paper, but really happy with how these came out. And then, we did have a snow day, so I popped my craft paper on to cover up the bleed through, and kind of talked about how nice it was to have a day in. And then the next day at school, I was so very tired. I just couldn't fall asleep this night. And, it is what it is. On Wednesday, had a little bit of a stressful day at work, full of some details that I cannot reveal. But then I had this Taylor Swift song stuck in my head all day. And so I just kind of wrote some of the lyrics that were really resonating with me in hopes that it would kind of work itself out of my system. Then this Thursday, the super of my building decided to crank the boiler up a little bit to make it a little hotter because it has been so cold. And unfortunately, that caused the radiators in our apartment to flip out and just spew water everywhere. And yeah, it was not a pleasant experience. Kind of grabbing all of our extra towels out of the closet and shoving them under the radiators to sop up this water, and it was soaking into the carpets. And we don't have wall-to-wall carpeting, but the throw rugs that we have down, and trying to move things so that they weren't getting wet. And it was just, yeah, it was an afternoon. And after all that, I came and wrote about it. And that catches us up to this past Friday and today, which I am about to kind of journal here with you. Kind of in the moment. So in that kind of journal with me. But unlike in my past journal with me where I have, kind of played music and then jumped to the end, I thought I could finish my reflection on what makes my journal feel so special this year as I kind of set the pages up for writing. And so maybe the writing portion I will kind of flash forward through, but for these initial setups of the spreads, I could talk to you and kind of set that up. So as I mentioned in the monthly pages and a little bit in my voiceover for the weekly, I think what has been really, really fascinating to me about this daily journaling practice is this idea of not just mindfulness, but this almost Zen-like quality, or I can't know if I want to call it just this idea of a flow state when I'm sitting down to journal and taking out my stickers and thinking about how I want things to look and what I'm going to say and what part of the day I want to highlight, and then laying it down and writing it and, getting to, express myself artistically a little bit. There is this part of it that is like a flow state where I'm just so into what I'm doing. Time is slipping away and melting away around me. But it is also kind of akin to this idea of like a Zen-like state of, I am so in this moment, which in a way is kind of ironic because journaling is writing about moments that are past or things that have happened. So how can I be super in this moment when what I'm doing is thinking about another moment, not this moment? But there's something about this that kind of creates this like weird paradox of like, in focusing on what I want to write about that has happened, I am so in the now about how I'm reflecting on it and what I'm writing, how I'm decorating the page and what I'm going to say, that it does feel like the rest of the world kind of melts away. So for example, for this Friday, I think I kind of want to do a spread that is a little bit similar to my map one that I did, like this, but just using icons on the side. And so I was thinking about what I could use to represent the different things that have happened that day. And I think I want to use some little stickers from this peelable PET tape, although it is made of washi, actually. This washi roll. I know that I went to karaoke, and so I feel like this phonograph can really kind of convey that. And I'm just going to stick that there for now. Let's see, on this day, I had to kind of write a lot of emails and messages. So I'm going to use this typewriter. And I taught a professional development session this day. And actually, I think to represent that, I'm going to go with this book and quill, because I think that kind of matches the size and vibe of these three. And yeah, I think I also attended a meeting where I had to talk a little bit about like recruitment for students for the next school year. Not that I'm heavily involved in that process, but just kind of to understand it. And so maybe I'll use these opera glasses because it's about searching. And that'll be my 4 items for this day. I'm a big fan of like PET tapes or rolls like this. These are all from the washi tape shop. And they recently reached out to offer me some rolls so I could use in my spreads. And I'm really, really thankful because I've seen other creators use these and I have really wanted to try them out myself. I couldn't bring myself to purchase anymore just because I've had so many PET tapes in my collection. But when they offered to kind of let me sample some, I thought it would be really, really fun to finally get to try to use them. And I love that they have the versions of these in washi and PET, like the plastic. And I chose to get all of the ones that they sent me in these Kiss Cut washi styles. And I'm obsessed with these rolls. Like, one, it is really nice to kind of have these kind of stored in a roll as opposed to having all the sheets, because those can get kind of cumbersome. But I'm really excited to be able to kind of go through and separate out like the repetitive loops, use them in Happy Mail to send to people, and also just use them in my spreads. And I, got quite a variety that I'm going to be using today. And that's another thing that I like to do, is kind of limit what my scope of the objects that I can use is. So it's like, I'm going to look at just this sticker book or this sticker pile or this ephemera. So I don't get caught up in the, abundance of choice that causes me to freeze. And so it was really exciting today to be able to sit down and be like, well, I'm going to just use rolls that, the washi tape shop has sent me to kind of create these spreads. And that's part of the thing that I think adds to this idea of like a Zen-like state, because it's just, I'm flowing through like what objects I have and how they're best going to work for me. And I'm thinking about my day and, like, I think this sticker sheet or this, company's role is really going to represent these things well. And then I get to focus on just the reflection part of it. And so I think for me, the first part of the day was writing a lot of these emails. So I'm going to stick down this typewriter. I'm always worried I'm not going to get it exactly centered, but then again, I tell myself, well, this is just for you to look at. And ultimately, I know that I share some of these, online, but down the line, I'm going to be the one re-looking at them. So then I did this recruitment. Well, actually, to make sure it's balanced, let me do the karaoke here at the bottom. And then I have my professional development and this meeting. Are you someone who really obsesses about getting these things perfect? I think past me would have been the kind of person who would count out the squares to make sure that I'm putting it exactly right and exactly equidistance. But I'm trying to just go with the flow more. Because going with the flow helps me just focus on the thinking part. So there are the 4 items for this day. I'm wondering if I want to put any washi on this. Maybe I can use this vintagey one because this is kind of a vintage aesthetic, but actually this will actually fit better. Let me tear that a little more evenly. And maybe I can just do a little thing here at the top. And centered here will be good. All right. I'm taking some of this trash and adding it to my trash heap. And then this will allow me to kind of go in and write next to each icon a little bit about what I did in that day. So I think that's exciting, and it'll work out for me really well. Today was a day where I got to go out for some brunch, and I'm really excited because on this coffee roll, there's these two individuals, and this almost looks exactly like my friend Nikki and myself, you know, ish. And it's so rare that I find an image that so perfectly represents the day, although we did not have a potted plant between us, but I will forgive the washi tape shop for not capturing my life perfectly. How dare they? Yeah, ooh, so do. That's the worst. I'm sure we've all experienced that at some point. I like this, and I'm just gonna commit. And I saved the menu from where we had brunch, and I'm going to cut out the name. Ooh, cut out or tear out? Just need to get the top. I guess I could stick that over there. I kind of like these little fiddly little looking bits. Uh-oh. Back on track. Okay. Hopefully you're enjoying this tearing ASMR. Although I don't even know if my mic's really picking it up. But it's in these moments where I'm kind of tearing out this ephemera, or like before, picking out the stickers, where I'm trying to, in my mind, distill what this day was like or what was important about it. That again, I feel like I enter this moment of like, all I'm thinking about in this moment is how to decorate my page, how to best represent my feelings, checking in with myself, and I feel like I am kind of hitting that flow or that zen in a way that is such a rare thing to find. I know that I've entered definitely flow states or this idea of like time slipping away when reading a book, but my mind is occupied with the story. It's not just focusing on my life or myself. I think when I was younger and playing certain games or doing certain crafts, that definitely was the case. And I think also what's interesting is that as an adult, teaching actually caused me to have something very similar. When I'm teaching, or when I was in the classroom teaching to students, I was always so focused on the lesson, what was happening, what the students were writing or saying, the next part I had to say, what the next activity was going to be. I was 100% in the moment, focusing on that task at that time. And so it was really, really fascinating to me to be so focused on that like nothing else mattered. Like I could have 100 different things stressing me out. I could have a lot of things on my mind. I could have a lot of things in my personal life not necessarily going well, but the bell would ring, we would start the lesson, and everything would melt away, and I'm just focused on what I'm saying, what the students are about to do, what they're writing, how could I encourage, X student to participate, or etc., all the different things. But I was in that moment focused solely on the students and what was happening in the classroom. And I think it's very rare, like I'm assuming for most people, to experience that kind of like melting away of the world as frequently as I did being a classroom teacher. And I find myself kind of experiencing the same thing in doing what I'm doing now. Obviously, it's not in this moment as I'm talking to you while I do it, but there's something about really hyper-focusing on this task and thinking about my own experiences that allows me to really experience that. I guess I'd have to do a little bit more research about this idea of flow states, Zen. Can you really compare them as the same thing? And, journaling. I'm sure there's been some research done or some things written about it. But right now I'm kind of just going off the old noggin about how I feel about it. I cannot figure out how to make these guys work, though. And maybe the Lord's isn't necessary. Maybe I just need these two guys. I think I like this. And I'll keep these like that. Yeah. What do you think? Do you experience this kind of Zen-like state of flow that I'm talking about? I don't know how coherent I'm being, but it's just something that was top of mind as I, again, talked about wanting to document the news in a separate journal, because the one thing I notice is that if I'm writing about things that are really intense or in some ways traumatic, I don't think that I kind of enter that same space. I'm not really slipping away into my journal when it's more of this like anger and hopeless feeling of what the news does. But even when I'm writing about perhaps things that are upsetting about my personal life, I still feel myself being more in the moment. But there's something about the current events style of journaling that doesn't allow me to really slip into that. And I really enjoy this feeling and have enjoyed having this reaction to journaling, this experience, and that's kind of the impetus for keeping things a little bit more compartmentalized. Gonna just use this glue runner here to adhere this as best I can. Goes that. The one thing I do want to make sure I have space for or to mention in here is the beginning of the day. We did wake up today to no water coming out of our faucets. After all of this radiator fiasco, to then 2 days later, we woke up and our pipes had frozen. Thankfully, our super was able to get a plumber to come, and now everything is fine later in the day. But it was a really harrowing way to start the day, and just trying to think about how best to capture that on here. And now I'm wondering if maybe because I want to just balance this out, maybe I could have like a torn section. I like that. I'm wondering if there's anything I can use to kind of represent the lack of water in our apartment. I don't know if I'm going to find that here. we had to go to, thankfully we have some friends who live very close by, and I texted them and said, hello friends, may we come use your bathroom and take a shower this morning? And they were very, very kind and let us come over, which was so nice of them. You know, I think in this one, there may be something that could work. Nope, it's not this one, although I love all of these daily activities, cooking, sports, the yoga. I think these are going to be really fun for the autumn and spring. And the drawing style is just really lovely. And I love washi stickers because of the way they blend so seamlessly into your page. Ah, here it goes. Maybe I can use this person with their towel wrapped in their hair wrapped in the towel, or the brushing the teeth. Actually, I think the brushing the teeth is going to be better because I feel like I can cut the sticker. Yeah. So let's get her up. Like, so thin, they peel up. I love Kiss Cut. I mean, I love a good, speaking of a Zen session of like cutting up PET tape. That's a great way to kind of just like fade away. Although that's more, I think, disassociating than a Zen. I think the moments in my journal just feel like I'm so focused on exactly what I'm doing. But cutting up PET tape, I think I'm kind of escaping into my mind somewhere. So let's see, this girl's brushing her teeth, and maybe I can cut it so it's just like here. Gonna keep her legs over here somewhere. And then maybe I'll put it so that she sticks up a little bit into the Saturday. Just seeing if there is a place on the menu that has more blank space. And I do think I found it. Just because I don't know if I want these prices showing through. Let's see. We want it to be a little thinner. Yep, comparable. And then I can just This is kind of like a gray text. I'm now wondering if it would be fun to use the same font, and instead of Lords, I could say, "Oh Lord," because it was a crazy morning. So I'm going to line this up and just kind of copy the font here. I'm going to use the same O. And now I gotta kind of pretend what I think an H would look like. All right, this is slightly not centered, so I'm just going to tear this. And I can get rid of all of this paper. I do want this to be a little skinnier. This is a dangerous game I'm about to play. If I mess this up, I'll have to redo it, and I just crumpled all the paper. Perfect. All right. Do you prefer glue runners? Are you more of a glue stick person? I use both for different purposes. There we go. And now I think these are ready for text. Something that's been really interesting is for this month, I've really just used Diatramentus Document Black for the writing. And then sometimes I'll bring in another fountain pen just as an accent. I've really been enjoying it. I'm interested to see if I will keep doing it moving forward. Yeah, I'm gonna just get into the writing portion of this. This part I will fast forward for you, or maybe just bring you back. But I hope that talking through this spread has been interesting, and also that it's made you think a little bit about this idea of being mindful or kind of falling into a Zen-like state while journaling. But yeah, let's get some words on here and then we can kind of wrap it up for today. So here is the spread, complete with the writing. I think that the layouts for both of the days really set me up for success with being able to write about it. And I'm really, really excited that I got to use all of the washi tape stickers from these Kiss Cut washi tape shop washi rolls. Again, when they reached out to me saying that they wanted to work with me, I was just so excited. I can show you, my unboxing of all the different rolls that they sent me. And I'm almost upset that I didn't try out the washi tape shop of my own accord and attempting to not have too many tape rolls of Kiss Cut stickers. I think it would have made setting up my cousin and my weeks even more exciting because of the different varieties of things that they have available. From themed rolls like these journaling or stationery everyday rolls, cats and books, spring cafe, to rolls that just have beautiful artwork like these everyday moments rolls. And they just have the most beautiful stickers available, either these small fiddly ones or even like these larger rolls of images that I think would be really, really amazing to use in the decoration of a notebook. And I'm excited to have them, and I get to be able to use them for that purpose moving forward. If you would like any of these washi tape rolls or PET tape rolls, Kiss Cut or otherwise, from the washi tape shop, there is a link in my description that you can click on to get a discount. I want to thank you so much for joining me today and for reflecting on the first month in my Hobonichi Cousin, as well as joining me for this conversation about journaling, flow, zen, the act of mindfulness, whatever word that I think best kind of matches up with this experience I'm describing. Perhaps you can tell me in the comments which you think it is that best matches it. If you experience this kind of feeling or this moment of kind of falling into the moment that you are experiencing with your journal and the rest of the world falling away, I'd love to know if that's something you experience. I'd also love to know how your journaling is going so far this year, and whether you are enjoying the system you set up in your initial thought for the year, or if you've pivoted. It's always interesting to me to see how people's experiences in the journals and notebooks and planners that they have are going. I hope that you have a great rest of the day, whether it's a few minutes before you go to bed, or you're watching this first thing in the morning and you have a whole day ahead of you, or everywhere in between. I hope that those moments are wonderful. And I hope that you keep exploring all the possibilities that a blank page can bring you. Until next time, goodbye.